Okay, so today we are going to learn a little bit of Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers. And the reason that I thought to do Ethics of Our Fathers is we know that between Pesach and Shavuot, we have a custom that we study Pirkei. There are 6 chapters of Ethics of Our Fathers, and there are 6 Shabboses or Shabbatot between Pesach and Shavuot. And so on each one of those Shabboses, we study one chapter of Ethics of Our Fathers. Now, of all the 60 tractates of the Mishnah, the Ethics of Our Father don't deal with, how much you have to tithe. Or, for example, there are many different tractates, and each one has a topic. A topic of the holidays, or a topic of the interpersonal relationships, a topic of business. Everyone has its topic, and the topic of the Ethics of Our Fathers is not what you do specifically, no specific mitzvahs, but more how you internalize and you become the mensch that acts in this way. And so it's called Pirkei Avot, which really means the chapters of our fathers, and it refers to the attitudes we should have and the ideas that should inform our behavior and our actions. So it's not about, how to keep Shabbos or how to fix a mezuzah. It's about how do you be the person that you were meant to be. And so why do we study them between the days when we left Egypt and we received the Torah? It works out that there is 6 weeks in between, or 6 Shabbos in between. But the idea is that just as we're counting towards receiving the Torah, we're also purifying ourselves and turning ourselves into the people who are ready to receive the Torah and are ready to act in this lofty manner. And the custom also is that after Shavuos, what do? You continue to study the Pirkei Avot every single Shabbos between Shavuos and Rosh Hashanah. And so that you have in this time of summer, which is a time of being laid back and abandoned for most people, right? The days are warm and the schedules are a little lighter, maybe not for everybody, but for many people. Therefore, people go on vacation, people relax, people kick back, and so it's you need that extra tweaking of personal integrity and reminding yourself who you are and what you are, especially as we come closer to Rosh Hashanah and leading up to the new year. So throughout the summer, we have the custom that we study Pirkei Avot every Shabbat, and usually you have to at the end bulk them up. I think you do 2 chapters 2 weeks before Rosh Hashanah and the 2 final chapters right before Rosh Hashanah, because it doesn't fit so evenly like the 6 weeks between Pesach and Shavuos. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you start to study Pirkei Avot, you think, it is telling me, it's odd that it would be telling me that, because every self-respecting person would act like that. In other words, you think, wait, this seems a little elementary, or this seems a little basic, and you wonder what is the real message, or what is the underlying message. And this is why we study it, because on the surface, some of the things seem they don't seem like in sync or congruent with people of a very high status. Okay, so we're going to take a look. This week's chapter is chapter 3, and you'll find it on page 277. And I just want to make another point here. So every single week when we study the ethics of our fathers, we always precede the chapter with a little intro, and we end the chapter with a little conclusion. And let's just take a look at the intro and the conclusion for a moment. So you see on page 277, it says, all Israel have a share in the world to come, as it is stated, and your people are all righteous, they shall inherit the land forever, they are the branch of my planting, the work of my hands, in which to take pride. So all Israel have a share in the world to come is a quote from a different place in the Mishnah that says that every Jew is deserving of the world to come. And this is an introduction to the study of ethics of our fathers, because we might say, who am I? You know, I'm just a typical Joe Blow. You know, I'm just, run-of-the-mill person. So, I may not be up for this very special behavior that someone who already is in sync with all the mitzvahs of the Torah, now they're expecting me to perfect my persona, myself. I might not be there, or I don't think of myself as that. So we're told, don't make any mistake. Every single Jew has a portion in the world to come. Don't look at who you think you are. Look at who God imagines you to be. And it says, as it says, this is a quote from Isaiah, that Isaiah says, your people are all righteous. They shall inherit the land forever. They are the branch of my planting, the work of my hands. God says this about us. Look at what I've planted. Look at what my hands made. This is in which to take pride. God says about each and every one of us, I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited to have created you. I have such hope for what you can accomplish. And if God says about us, surely we know that we have the potential to be this and more. Now, I just wanted to mention that we call the Pirkei Avot ethics of our fathers, but there's another word or another name for it, and it's called Milei de Chasidusa, which means words of like Hasidisms, or for the Hasids. Now, years and years before the Hasidic movement was established, about 250 or 300 years ago, years and years and years before that, in the times of the Mishnah and the Talmud, a Chassid was someone who had climbed the greatest heights, who had mastered Torah and mitzvahs, and now was, in the business, so to speak, or on the way to perfecting his or herself. Okay, so what and it's explained. What is a chassid? A chassid is someone who goes beyond the letter of the law. Okay, in other words, let's say, I'm just going to give you an example. According to Jewish law, you only have to give 10% of your earnings to tzedakah. So I have $100, and any law-abiding Jew will say, okay, I have to give $10 to tzedakah. But a chassid will say, you know what, I'll give more. I'll give 20%. Or a chassid will not look for a loophole and say, well, it's kind of kosher, or by some standard or by some stretch it's okay. He will say, or she will say, no, I want to make sure 100%, absolutely, I'm not taking any shortcuts, I'm not taking any loopholes, I'm doing it 100%. So that we introduce these ethics of our fathers, or we introduce this every week when we study this, to say, don't think you're off the hook. God looks at you and sees a chassid, or God looks at you and sees someone with tremendous potential who he is so excited and proud to have created. Now, we conclude each week with, if you look on page 281, it says like this: Rabbi Hananiah, the son of Akashia, said, "The Holy One, blessed be He, wished to make the people of Israel meritorious. Therefore he gave them Torah and mitzvot in abundant measure, as it is written, the Lord desired for the sake of his Israel's righteousness to make the Torah great and glorious." So why do we have so many mitzvahs, right? Why couldn't God just have given us the 10 Commandments? Or why couldn't he have just given us the 7 Noahide laws? Why so many details and so many mitzvahs? Rabbi Hananiah ben Akashia says, you know why? Because he loves us so much. He wants lizakot it means to give us a lot of merits, a lot of points, but it also means to shine, to make us shine, to polish us. We know that every mitzvah we do somehow impacts our psyche. For example, you eat matzah. Matzah teaches you what? Humility, exactly. A mezuzah, what does a mezuzah teach you? Well, maybe many things. It gives you confidence because, God is protecting you. It reminds you of your whatever. There are many things that a mezuzah teaches us. What does honoring our parents teach us? Or what does it develop within us? Respect, kindness, appreciation. Every mitzvah works to polish and to shine something specific. And so each one of us does so many mitzvahs, and we can rest assured that we are we have it within us to be the chassid, or to rise to the occasion of self development. Okay, so today we are going to take a look at, depending on how much time we have, we're going to take a look at the first Mishnah, the second Mishnah, or part of the second Mishnah. First, second, and then first, second, $13 and $17. Okay, we'll see if we get there. Okay, so we're going to start with number 1. Akavia ben Mahalalel. Akavia, we're on 277. Okay. So far, whatever I've said is clear, no questions. Yes? Okay. Akavia, the son of Mahalalel, said, "Reflect upon 3 things, and you will not come to sin." Okay? Know from where you came, and to where you are going, and before whom you are destined to give an accounting. So basically what he's saying is, if you want to stay away from sin, reflect on 3 things. Where you come from, where are you going, and before whom are you going to have to give an accounting. From where you came, from a putrid drop, from a seminal drop, okay? And to where are you going? To a place of dust, maggots, and worms. Inspiring, right? Okay, we're going to talk about this, of course. And before whom you are destined to give an accounting, before the Supreme King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He. Now, basically what it's saying is, you want to stay out of trouble, remember where you came from, remember where you're going, and remember what kind of an accounting you're going to have to give and to whom. Now, so in the very simplest sense, this is like a little wake-up call. We're on the fast track in life, and we have so many people, places to go, and people to meet, and this gives you pause for pause to think about where are you headed, what are you doing, how meaningfully you're living your life, and if indeed you're happy and you're comfortable with the way you're doing things. So in the very simplest sense, this is a reminder, guys, the world is very temporal. You came from nothing, you're going to nothingness, and you're going to have to give a report of how you lived each day, and you don't want to be sorry. So there of course there are many commentaries that explain in great depth what is being discussed here, but from first of all, like a editing, if you want to just strictly literary, it seems like it's very wordy, right? Know 3 things, reflect on 3 things, and you will not come to sin. Know from where you come, know where you're going, and know before whom you will have to give this accounting. Where do you come from? A putrid drop. Where are you going? Couldn't it just have said what?
Well, it repeated itself.
Right, couldn't it just have said, if you want to stay away from sin, remember that you came from a putrid drop. Keep in mind that you're going to a place of worms and maggots, and that ultimately you're going to have to give a report to the King of Kings. Like, why all this wordiness?
Well, not everybody's going to look at where they came from as having come from a putrid drop. You've got this elevated view of yourself. You're going to,
you came from money.
Yeah, or something, yeah. Or, where are you going? I'm going to, when I die, I'm going to be in the palace of, whatever.
Right. But even giving us this message, it could have been given in a little bit more succinct fashion. It didn't have to say, where are you going? You know where you're going? Just say it and finished, right? So, first of all, there's a lot of wordiness. Second of all, in the Hebrew, if you take a look at the Hebrew, take a look at the second line. It says, Ve'ein ata, are you with me? Ve'ein ata va lidei avera. What is a yad? The hand, right. Yad avera. What does a yad avera mean? It's not avera. It doesn't mean come to a sin. It means come to the hand of a sin. Okay? What does the handle on the door do for you?
It's your decision to open it or not.
Right. It allows you to
go through where you can stay where you're at.
Right. So more likely than not, if you get to the door handle, you'll probably open it up. But this is not even talking about getting to the sin. This is talking about getting to the handle of the sin. All right? So we're not talking, okay? So what would be, or, you talk about the handle of the iron, right? The handle of the iron allows you to iron, but, you could pick up the iron and then decide, I'll let someone else iron or whatever. So it's not actually that you're coming into this, to actual experiencing the sin. It's just that you're coming to the hand of the sin. But because this is Pirkei Avot, ethics of our fathers, the Hasidic behavior, it's saying you don't even want to get to the handle, right? Like you say, you get to the handle, do you want to go in? Do you not want to go in? But it's close enough that you're almost in. So it's the step before, but it still is close to the sin.
So that's the translation, you will not come to sin?
You will not come to the hand of a sin.
But the,
Yes,
But you
yeah.
come to the edge.
Right, exactly. To the like threshold of the sin, exactly. Or to the thing that will allow you. Or yeah. So let me explain something. Let me just clarify something. In Hebrew, you could say lidei ave, you could say to the hand of the avera or to the hand of the sin, and it makes sense. Or you can say al yedei, like how? Al yedei, by, but the literal translation is on the hand. In other words, through the hand of. So it is a correct way to say it in Hebrew, but if we're translating every single word, it's teaching us something extra. That's the point. It makes perfect sense as is, but when you start to nitpick, you'll say, well, why does it say the hand of Avera? Why doesn't it just say coming to the Avera, coming to the sin? So one of the things that the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe teaches is that one thing he says is that Akavia is saying he's speaking to three distinct kinds of people. And since the Alter Rebbe was the one that wrote the Tanya is like the handbook, the spiritual psychological handbook of the average Jew. He presents ideas that apply to the tzaddik, which is the completely righteous person, that apply to the Beinoni, which is the average, and then to the Rasha, to the person who is like the sinner, or people that can't get a grip and are constantly slipping up, okay? That he doesn't look at them as like, he's just like, they're working, they keep slipping up. So he says like this, why is it so wordy? Because he's talking to everyone, and each clause is talking to someone else. Or parts of each clause are talking to someone else. So he says like this, Histakel b'shlosha dvarim, look at three things, reflect on three things, and you will not come to the handle of the sin. Why does the tzaddik have to look at three things? I'll tell you. The tzaddik has to look at God. He's living in the world. He looks at God, and he looks at himself. But the Mishnah says, hey, tzaddik, don't just look at yourself and at God. Look at the world. Three things. There's a grouping here, not two, three. It's you, it's God, and it's the world. Don't think that you can separate yourself from the world, that you and your relationship with God could be on a spiritual plane, and you don't have to be sidetracked by the world. You have to be sidetracked by the world. You have to get into the world. You have to get your hands dirty, and you have to work in the world because that was what God intended. He wanted you, and He wanted you to live in this world and to use the world in your relationship with God. So that's why we start off with the wordiness saying, look at three things, even though we're going to get to the three things and we know how to count, so we're going to know it's three things. He says, look at three things, talking to the tzaddik. Look at these three individual things, you, God, and the world. And don't ignore the third thing, because God has dispatched you into the world because He wants you to work in the world. Okay? And he goes on to explain to the tzaddik. And we're continuing in the Hebrew. Da, no. Me'ayin bata. Ayin means, it's a question, in the regular vernacular, me'ayin bata, from where did you come? But ayin also means from nothingness. Or, ayin is the nothingness that is the highest point. In other words, it's not a physical something, but it's a nothingness and a nowhere on God's map. Okay? So you know that you came from ayin. So we're not asking you, where did you come from? You know. May ayin bata, you came from nothingness, or you came from that point of greatness, which is nothingness. Okay? Ula'an ataholech, and you are going to An. An is another level of greatness to which the soul can climb in its service of God. V'lifnei mi ata atid litain din v'cheshbon, and before whom will you have to give an accounting? So we're talking to the tzaddik, and we're saying, remember the three things: you, God, and the world. Why did God dispatch you from this great place into a world? Why is he? Because he wants you to improve it. He wants you to make an impact. And through this impact, you will get to An, which is another great place in the levels of souls, okay? And at that point, you will have to give an accounting before the King of Kings. Now, in the Hebrew again, if you take this is the fourth line, 2 words. Din v'cheshbon. Okay? Do you know what din is? Yom hadin. Judgment. Okay? Din is judgment. And what is cheshbon? Cheshbon is an account. Okay? So, and this is a commonly used word in Yiddish vernacular. A din v'cheshbon means like my mother's asking me for a din v'cheshbon. Where were you all night? My mother's asking me for a din v'cheshbon. She needs to know where I was. Okay, so din is a judgment and cheshbon is an accounting. But the question is, what comes first, the din or the cheshbon? The judgment or the accounting? The accounting. First I say, I did this, I didn't do this, this wasn't so great, this was great, 2 points, 5 points, 10 points, -7. Then you have the judgment, right? But here it's saying, we're giving you the judgment first, and then we're going to do the accounting. Now the Baal Shem Tov explains what this means. That when a person passes away, and the person comes before the court of law, everybody is judged. Every soul is judged for their actions. Okay? Now, because a Jewish soul is so powerful, even the courts in the celestial worlds have no power over the Jewish soul. So basically, the person has to give a judgment or has to determine what's going to happen with his own soul. So what they do is they show the soul some actions. They say, look, we need your help. We have a case. We have to try. We are very removed from the world. We don't know, we're not, we're angels. We don't have that human capacity and understanding. We need your help to judge this case. Let's show you something, and you tell us what the judgment might be. And they show him or her. Our lives are played before us, and we judge. We say unacceptable or check plus or A minus or whatever. We pass judgment on our own lives, and then the courts come and say, well, you just passed judgment on that life. You did this, you didn't do this, just as you said, and so the judgment that you just passed is the judgment that is for you. So when we come and give an accounting before God, we will be passing our own judgment on our own selves. And one of the things we learn from this is that we should get into the habit of judging favorably. When you see something, don't be incriminating. Don't think, give them the benefit of the doubt. Give them a pass. They had a hard day. They had a hard morning. They're not smart enough. They weren't thinking, whatever. give people a pass. And if you get into that habit, when you get to your own judgment, you're going to give yourself an easier judgment. Okay. So now we're talking about, now we're going to go to the medium person. Okay? The medium person, the Beinoni, or the average person, who struggle in the world. And the main struggle is the struggle between, we all know this, what's really important and what's ephemeral. What's fleeting and passing and what is real. We all struggle with this. And we all sometimes slip up because we're not thinking about it enough, or we're not focusing on it enough. And so what we're trying to establish here is that our life is fleeting. That in our fleeting life, we want to make a difference. We want to do good. We want to leave the world a better place than what we found it. And this is why we remind ourselves, where do you come from? You come from a putrid drop, but that drop is just your body. That's just the body. The soul, that comes from a much greater place. But nevertheless, we have to partner the body and the soul, because in this world, a soul without a body can't work. So your body is the vehicle for which your soul can operate. But never forget for a moment that the body is lowly and that the soul is where it's at. Then we go on to say, okay, where are you going? You're going to go to a place of worms and dust, maggots and worms, right? That's what happens to the body, right? The soul and the body separate. The soul goes up to heaven. The body gets interred in the ground. And it invites maggots and dusts and worms. And the fatter the body and the more physical it is, the more the insects have a better time. So we're not focusing on that as much as how much do you want to strengthen your worldliness. In other words, if you look at your worldliness as the sum total of that, but you know that your soul, your essence is eternal, why would you want to give more credibility and strength to your physicality? Now, how are some ways, of course, the more a person eats, the more body there is, but how are there ways in which we contribute to our physicality, even while going through the world and doing good things?
I mean, how do we contribute negatively to the physicality?
Well, I'm not even saying negatively, but how do we reflect unkindly on our spirituality and give strength to the body or the bodily needs?
Well, kashrut, I guess.
Okay.
Thinking about what we eat and recognizing where it came from before we eat it.
Right. Right. Okay, so what you're saying is to incorporate more mitzvahs into every aspect of our lives, okay? Yes, and that's a big yes, but that is not, that according to Pirkei Avot, that goes without saying.
What we do with our hands, what our actions are that we're using our body for, then I guess that's still mitzvahs though.
Right, exactly, that's still mitzvahs. It's almost our intention, or it's our attitude, or why are we doing the mitzvahs, or what are we getting out of the mitzvahs? Like sometimes, I just read yesterday in a little book of aphorisms, Hasidic aphorisms, that sometimes something can have can seem so holy. Like some of the words we toss around. Tikkun olam. Tikkun olam means the verse where it's taken from comes from. We say this in the V'al Kain right after Aleinu, where we say that God put us in the world litakein olam, to mend the world b'malchut, the kingdom of God, malchut Shaddai, right? So this is not about all kinds of rights for different kinds of people and civil rights and equal rights and who knows what kind of rights. Not at all. This is about God's sovereignty. And so God's sovereignty is expressed in doing mitzvahs between man to God, and mitzvahs in man to man, civilly, socially, whatever. But it always has to be under the umbrella of a mitzvah, not just a term that we toss around for our own benefit or to promote our own causes. So the question becomes, are we living this life authentically, or are we living this life because it makes us feel good? Because socially we're in those circles where everyone is living this life and it feels right, or it's comfortable, or we send our kids to these schools and everyone is doing this. Is that why we're doing it? And if we are adding, so to speak, we are growing the part of us that will be attacked by the maggots and the worms and the mites, even in a non-physical way. Does that make sense? Metaphorically speaking, we are giving strength and solidifying our connection with our physicality. I feel good when my kids go to this school and socialize with these people, and so therefore I'm going to be a little bit more, for lack of a better word, orthodox, which is not really the aspiration of me becoming closer to God. It's not about me being connected or serving Him or making the world a better place. It's more about the convenience and about how I'm enjoying this experience. So again, it's maybe a more elevated level of existence, but it's not a serving God existence.
So what are you supposed to do? If you send your kid to that school,
It makes you feel better. It makes you feel like you're doing the right thing.
Okay. So what are you supposed to do? So let's say you do feel better. And let's say you are traveling in the circles with your friends and you're happy about it. You still want to remind yourself, it's not about me. It's not about how I feel. Even though I do feel good about it, even though first of all, I'm not doing it because it makes me feel good. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do, because it makes the world a more godly place, because because through this I'm serving God. So, we always have to remember that the bottom line is the purpose for which we are here is not at all, it's nothing to do with us. It's not, we pray. We talk about this, around Rosh Hashanah, where Hannah, Samuel's mother, prays for a child. And she prays and she prays. And we learn many things about prayer from this story and the interaction. But the bottom line is that she begged for a child, but she gave him up. She bore him, and when he was 2 years old, she brought him to the temple, and because she said, I promise you, God, if you give me the child that I want is a child to serve you. And so she took the child and she brought him to Shiloh and she gave him to the high priest, and she said, here, I have a team player. I'm leaving him here. I'll come visit him. I'll bring him gifts. But I prayed for this child, and I promised that I would. It wasn't about me. It was about you, God. And so here he is. So if we could live like that, where of course we're serving God, and of course it's nice to sit around the Shabbos table and eat good food. Okay? How could you not enjoy it? But to constantly remind yourself, it's not about the nice food, and it's not about the good company, and it's not about the circles in which I travel. It's about making God happy. It's about, and what does this benefit? When there is a confrontation or a conflict between this and that, you'll always do the right thing, right? You'll always be able to do the right thing because it's not about what everyone is doing, or it's not about how everyone feels or how I feel. It's about what is the right thing for me to do today. So always to be cognizant. It's not, even though this is wonderful, even though we love it, even though we're enjoying it and we love each other and it's amazing, this is not the point. The point is, can we up our game in our service of God? Can we make God a little bit more happy with us? Can we bring ourselves to the place where we get to give the din v'cheshbon? Are we going to be happy with the din v'cheshbon that we're giving? Have we done it all? Okay. And then, of course, so we speak to the Beinoni, to the middle person, and then
What's the translation of Beinoni?
Beinoni is average.
Oni is average?
Bain is
son
okay. So that's
of, or between.
okay.
Between.
Bain means between.
Okay.
Bain means between.
Okay.
So you have a tzaddik, you have a rasha, and you have a bain.
Okay.
The between. That means kind of like the average guy. The middle, not a good guy, not a bad guy, a middle of the road, average.
Does Oni have a translation?
Beinoni. I don't know how the word is comprised, but it's the one who is the middle, the one who is between. Okay. Okay, so any questions on this? No. Okay, so now we'll do, well, it's already 1 o'clock. Should we do a little more, or you guys got to run?
I can do a little longer.
Okay, so we'll do a little bit more. Okay, let's go here. Rabbi Hanina, the deputy high priest. Now in Hebrew, it says Rabbi Hanina, Sagan HaKohanim, the deputy of many priests. Okay? Now, the deputy of the priests usually became the priest when the priest passed away. So how did Rabbi Hanina, how was he the deputy of the priests and never became the high priest himself? Here's the story. It was about during the time of the Chashmonaim, of the rule of the Chashmonaim, after the Hanukkah story, and there was a lot of, the Chashmonaim, as you know, were priests, right? Matityahu was the high priest, and his 5 sons, they were all priests. So after and during the time of the Hanukkah story, they were very, very saintly and righteous. Now, afterwards, there was a lot of corruption, terrible amount of corruption. So the Hanukkah story took place like middle of the road, halfway. The second temple stood for about 420 years, and this was maybe halfway into it. That was when the Hanukkah story took place. And from the time after the Hanukkah story until the destruction of the temple, there was a lot of corruption within the Jewish leadership. And people they wouldn't be Kohanim, but they would pay their way to be a Kohen or a high Kohen Gadol. Why? because it was a very lofty experience. Now, we all know what would happen. We know that the high priest had an amazing experience on Yom Kippur. Right? What was it? He would enter the Holy of Holies and be in that room. No human being could ever go in there other than on this holy day. And if he was not 100% righteous, he would not survive, and he would have to be pulled out. In fact, he always, when the high priest would go into this room, he would be like, there would be like a rope attached to him, I think on his ankle or something, where they would be able to pull him out if he didn't come out in a timely manner, and so, because no one could go in to get him. And people would buy the rights to this, even if they knew that they wouldn't survive. Everybody wanted this experience. Well, yeah, they wanted the status, they wanted this experience, to be able to go into the Holy of Holies, to be able to see what was there. It was a very lofty experience, and people paid money and then paid with their lives. So Rabbi Hanina was the deputy, and he lived through many, many, many Kohanim who did this shtick, okay? Now, he himself was a very, very authentic, holy guy. In fact, he was one of the 10 martyrs. We read about the 10 martyrs on Yom Kippur, about like Rabbi Akiva was one of them, Rabbi Hanina was one of them. How was Rabbi Hanina killed? Rabbi Hanina was killed, they took a Torah scroll and they wrapped it around him and they doused it in whatever it was. I think they put cotton on his, like by his heart, so it should take, the suffering should be more, he should burn for longer, and this is the way he passed away. And his daughter was standing and watching him, and by the way, his daughter was also a very great woman. I'll mention who she is in a moment. And she was standing and crying. She says, "Dad, how could you tolerate this? How could you, this is terrible." And he said to her, when the Torah scroll was burning, he says, "I see the scroll is burning, but I see the letters are flying upward. And the one who will avenge the honor of the Torah will avenge my honor as well." And so you see what kind of people these are that are teaching us these things. Okay?
But why did they burn him?
Because of who he was. It was during the Roman, you see, after the Greeks, the Greek Empire was conquered by the Romans. And the Romans then enacted very strict laws over the Jews living in Israel. They micromanaged them. They didn't want to allow them to study Torah. And yes, so these 10 individuals, like the greatest of the greats, were selected to be tortured publicly and killed, and so he was one of them. Okay, and why do we read it on Yom Kippur? We read it on Yom Kippur to tell God, look at these people that paid the price for us. We're the nobodies, we're the average, but the price has been paid already, and in their merit, help us out. I mean, that's one of the reasons. Okay, so what does he say? He says, pray for the welfare of the government. Pray for the welfare of the government, meaning that and in many synagogues we have this custom that there's a prayer for the American government. There's where we ask God to bestow, whatever it is, peace and harmony and knowledge and whatnot, that the government should be strong. Why? When the government is strong, people are safe. Exactly, people are safe. Now, he lived in a time of a government where the government was not good. They were rotten. But even a rotten government has a certain purpose. The purpose is law and order. What happens when there's anarchy? We're really in trouble. Every man for himself. And this is what he continues to say. For were it not for the fear of it, men would swallow one another alive. Okay? People would basically what he's trying to say is people would become savage. People would just be so wild and so disrespectful, and like you said, nothing would be safe. We wouldn't be safe. But the commentators wonder, why does he use the term swallow one another alive? So first of all, the commentators say, of course he means praying for a government. And this is also why throughout Jewish history, Jewish leadership always tried to show respect to the government and always prayed for the government, even when it wasn't a good government, even when it was a government that caused Jews a lot of anguish and persecution. Because the institution of a government is a reflection of God's sovereignty in the world. And in fact, the commentators say that when Rabbi Hanina says, pray for the welfare of the government, he's not only talking about the government of the U.S. and the government of Canada and France and England. He's also, more importantly speaking, about the government, the governance, the sovereignty of God, and the Shekhinah, the God's presence that dwells amongst us, that protects us. And what does he say? For were it not for the fear of it, men would swallow one another alive. Here he's saying like this. There is this attitude, and we see this all the time, where people do not value one another. They value what the other, how the other can serve them. So for example, I don't need you, I need your business. So I'm not really interested in you, I'm interested in what what I'm going to get out of our relationship. And you see this even with people that are so close to one another, people that supposedly care for one another. You see this in romantic relationships, how one takes advantage of the other, how I swallow you up alive, meaning I don't need you for you, I need you for how you benefit me. And so I don't see you as an individual. I swallow you, you're swallowed into the sphere of me and what I need and who serves me and who takes care of me and who makes me feel good. So that's why we're not using the word they would kill each other. No, they're not killing each other, and they look very civil. But they are swallowing one another alive, meaning they are not respecting one another for who the other is. And what is the antidote for this? The fear of heaven. Because the fear of heaven, or the cognizance that God is the sovereign over all of us, and he gave value to each individual, and each individual has tremendous value in and of his or herself. He or she is not an accessory to me, but they are a value unto themselves and unto the whole world.